So Bacillus thuringiensis is the bacteria that actually control the butterfly caterpillars. So Trichoderma, it is one of the best biological control agents that was developed for the treatment of plant diseases. Conventional practices means here there is use of chemical methods to kill both the useful and the harmful life forms. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another session on chapter 10 of 2nd PUC, that is Microbes in Human Welfare. I am Dr. Divya, Biology faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about how microbes are used in the treatment of the wastewater or the sewage treatment, and also we understood how microbes are used in the production of biogas, and this biogas can also be used for cooking purposes. In today's session, we shall see how microbes are used as a biocontrol agent. So what are these biocontrol agents? So biocontrol agents are the ones which protect the plants against the harmful insects and the pests. So instead of going in for using the artificial methods of protecting the plants against these insects and pests, we can go in for the usage of the biocontrol methods, that is the use of microbes instead of depending on the harmful chemical products. And by doing so, we can avoid the use of chemicals which causes a lot of harm to the microbes that are present in the rhizosphere of the plants. So in today's session, we shall understand how exactly are these microbes used as a biocontrol agent. So to begin with, microbes as biocontrol agents. So biocontrol is nothing but use of biological methods in order to keep the plants free of diseases and pests. So here, plants themselves, they have a lot of defense mechanisms by which they can produce enzymes in their body which may keep the insects and the pests at bay. But sometimes what happens, the insects and pests themselves, they can evolve and alter their gene in such a way that they can render resistance against the enzymes or the defense enzymes that are produced by the plants. So in doing so, again, we need to look for an alternative method in order to control the pests and the diseases that are causing harm to the plants. One kind of method is the use of the agricultural insecticides and the pesticides, which are nothing but made up of different chemical formulations. But these insecticides and pesticides, in turn, if it is added to the soil or if it's sprayed onto the plant, it may cause a lot of problem, because when we consume such plants, the chemicals in trace amounts, it will enter into our body as well. And one more thing is, if that insecticide and pesticide while spraying to the plants, if they fall on the soil, they are also harmful to the beneficial microorganisms such as the nitrogen fixing bacteria or many other that are dwelling in the rhizosphere of the soil. So it is very important in terms of balancing a good ecosystem, it is very important to go in for the biocontrol methods rather than using the chemical agricultural methods of practices in order to control the insects and the pests. So here we know that nowadays there is a lot of increase in the use of chemicals as insecticides and pesticides, because we people want a very good result at one stretch, right? So that is why we depend on the chemical pesticides and the insecticides, but all these are for time being. So why not use a biocontrol agent so that permanently we can find a solution to tackle this insects and the pests that are attacking the crop plants. So that is when we can go in for the biocontrol methods. And we also know that these chemicals that are used, they are quite poisonous or toxic and harmful to human beings and also to animals. And not just that, they cause a lot of pollution to our environment, such as the soil and even to the groundwater. And not just that, these insecticides, they also cause a lot of problem to the other plants which are growing in that particular area. So that is why we have to avoid using these insecticides and the pesticides. And also they cause a lot of problem to the fruits, vegetables and also to a crop plant, because when we consume them, I told you traces of these elements, that is the chemical elements, will enter into our body as well in spite of washing them a number of times. So that is why to avoid all these, we can go in for the usage of a biocontrol method. And also there are a lot of weedicides, which are nothing but herbicides that are used to remove the weeds. So by doing that, it also pollutes the soil. So soil pollution, it will pollute the soil, and this soil, along with the flow of water, it may reach a nearby lake and river, and there it will be harmful or toxic to the organisms that are living in the lake and the river. So in order to avoid all this, it is better to go in for a biocontrol method, wherein we can take in something from the nature and in turn use that natural method in order to control the pest and the disease. So that can be done by using various microbes in order to control these pests and insects. So what are those different biological control methods that we can follow in order to protect the crops against the diseases caused by the insects and the pests? We shall see. So here, one method that we can follow is the natural predation. So natural predation means any animal or organisms we can leave it on the plant, so that, say for example, we have the ladybird. So ladybirds, they feed on the aphids. So wherever there is some aphids growing in that particular crop field, we can leave ladybirds to that crop field so that the ladybirds will start feeding on the aphid, and thereby it will protect the crops in turn. So it is like a mutualistic relationship wherein the ladybirds depend on the aphids for their food, and in turn the plant is free of the aphids. So like that it can be done. And one more is, so these are the organic practices that can be followed in order to control the pest and the disease instead of going in for a chemical method. And next one is conventional practices. Conventional practices means here there is use of chemical methods to kill both the useful and the harmful life forms. So here what happens in the conventional method? One more reason is why. So conventional method actually teaches us why we should not go in for the use of chemical pesticides and herbicides or insecticides. It is because while using these conventional methods, that is the chemicals, they will just not be able to kill the insects, but on the other hand, they will also be harmful for the beneficial living organism. So that is why it is not good to follow this conventional method. Instead of that, we can go in for the organic practices wherein other organisms or microbes can be used in order to control the diseases and pests that attack the crop. So some of the organic practices which can be followed, few of the examples which I have taken here is, one is biocontrol by insects. So for biocontrol by insects, what can be done? The best example that we can take of is the ladybird. So these ladybirds actually, they get rid of the aphids. So aphids are, so we have a lot of insects, that is aphids here. Aphids, and this is the ladybird. So aphids are such insects which feed on the sap of the crop plants or any of the plants. But in a farmer's field, if there is lots of aphids, it is a harm to the crop, right? Because not just that, these aphids can be vectors or they can be carriers of other diseases as well. The aphids might go to feed on a diseased crop. So when they're coming back to feed on a healthy crop, they will carry the disease from the diseased crop, and then they will deposit those microbes and pathogens on the healthy crop as well. So all these is actually a menace to the farmers. So of course, the farmers can use a lot of chemicals or insecticides in order to control these aphids. But on the other hand, it might affect the crop and it might cause a lot of pollutions to the environment. So in order to prevent that, he can go for the biocontrol method wherein he uses an insect against one more insect. So what he is doing here, he is using a ladybird against the aphids. So the ladybirds will start feeding on the aphid, and in turn it protects the crop as well. So that is one of the important methods. And one more is dragonflies. So dragonflies can be used to get rid of the mosquitoes. So dragonflies, they will start feeding on the mosquitoes or on the larvae of the mosquitoes. Therefore, it will decrease the population of the mosquitoes, which is not of good to the human being. So that is why dragonfly can be used in controlling mosquitoes instead of using a lot of sprays, that is mosquito related sprays. Example, DDT. DDT is one such banned chemical which should not be used. But still today in some of the regions, in order to control the mosquito population, they actually spray DDT, which is actually one of the harmful chemicals that causes a lot of respiratory disorders. So instead of going in for the use of a chemical method, there is an alternative which will actually help the human beings as well by preventing them from having respiratory problems and all that. What can be done? The dragonflies can be used instead, right? So the dragonflies will feed on the mosquito, therefore that particular area will be ridden of mosquitoes. So we can get rid of the mosquitoes by using the dragonfly. So these are two other examples for organic practices wherein the biocontrol of insect pests are done by using biological control agents, say for example the ladybird and the dragonflies. So next, moving on to the use of microbes in order to control the pests and the diseases. So one of the best example for the use of a microbe in order to control the pest and diseases is that of Bacillus thuringiensis. So Bacillus thuringiensis is a bacteria that actually control the butterfly caterpillars. So we all know that usually the larvae, any insect, if they are in the larval stage, so they will lay the eggs. From the eggs, the larvae will come out, and these larvae are voracious feeders in the sense they eat a lot. And these larvae, on whichever plant you leave them, say for example, one morning the plant will have a large number of leaves, and next day morning you wake up and see the leaves and all will not be there at all in the plant. It is because of the larvae. Insect larvae, they are voracious feeders, they keep eating a lot. That is the same case with that of the caterpillars, that is butterfly also. They have a indirect development, right, wherein the eggs, out of the eggs the pupa will come out, then it forms a larvae and all that stages are there. So in the larval stage, these butterflies, so the larval stage of butterfly is nothing but the caterpillar stage. So the caterpillar stage of the butterfly, these caterpillars start feeding on the plants. Imagine if there are hundreds of butterflies which have laid the eggs in the crop field, and out of that hundreds of larvae have come out, that is in the form of caterpillar, and if they continuously start eating the crops, then what might happen to the farmer, right? It is quite difficult for him. It is a huge loss for him. So in such cases, what can be done? Instead of going for a chemical method to control these butterfly caterpillars, we can use Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a bacteria. So this Bacillus thuringiensis, actually it is available in the dried form. So there are sachets which are available, and in that sachet the dried bacterial spores will be there, and whenever these bacterial spores are mixed with water and sprayed onto the plant, they will become active again. So in the sachets, inactive bacterial spores will be there, that is dried bacterial spores will be there, bacterial spores of Bacillus thuringiensis. So these bacterial spores, they can be mixed with water and they are sprayed onto the vulnerable plant. So the disease plant as well as the plants which are susceptible to insect attack, to that also they will spray. Brassicas, then fruit trees. So all these. Sometimes on the fruit trees also you can see during the caterpillar season, you can see a lot of web-like structures that are formed. So that is because of a lot of caterpillars present on them. So in such trees and all that, we can spray this Bacillus thuringiensis dry sachet. So it is available in the form of a dry sachet. That dry sachet can be brought to the home. It can be mixed with water with correct formulations, and that water now, which is consisting of the Bacillus thuringiensis spores, it can be sprayed onto the plants. So now these plants, what they will do is, so now these Bacillus thuringiensis spores, they will become active. So if they have to survive, they have to feed on to something. So what they will do is, they will start eating the insect larvae, that is the butterfly caterpillars or any insect larvae that is there, it will start feeding on them. And what they will do is, in the gut, they will enter into the gut of the larvae, and in the gut of the larvae, they will release a toxin. And that toxin, that is Bt toxin, it is called as Bt toxin. So it will release a Bt toxin. So Bt is nothing but Bacillus thuringiensis toxin. So that Bt toxin, when it is released inside the gut of the intestine, the bacterial will kill that particular caterpillar or whatever is there, that will be killed. But other insects will be unharmed. So these are also specific, that we should know. It will not kill all the insects. It is meant to kill only the caterpillars of the butterflies. So what they will do, they will enter into the that is intestine of that particular caterpillar, and they will start to release toxins in them, and these toxins will actually kill the larvae. So that is how they will get killed. And it will not affect the other useful insects, but it will only affect the insects that are harmful to the plant. So that is the case. And scientists have introduced Bacillus thuringiensis toxin genes into plants. So here, this is a transgenic approach, or it is a genetic modification, right? We can call it as a genetic modification. It is a genetic modification. Why? Instead of using the dry sachets of Bacillus thuringiensis. So if we use the dry sachets of Bacillus thuringiensis, every now and then we'll have to keep that is spraying. So whenever we find an insect on a plant, that is the insect larvae on a crop plant, we'll have to spray them, bring them and spray them, right? It is also, it requires a lot of labor, and also it requires a lot of amount to the farmers. So that is when what scientists decided was, permanently we can solve this problem. So how can this problem be permanently solved? What they did was, they introduced the gene. So there was a gene which actually produced this particular toxin, that is Bacillus thuringiensis toxin or the Bt toxin. So that gene which produced this particular Bt toxin was isolated. It was introduced into a plasmid, and that plasmid was sent by a vector into one of the plant. And now in that plant, what happened? That is, from genes isolated from Bacillus thuringiensis, that is those genes which produce the Bt toxin that was isolated from bacterial thuringiensis was sent into the plant. Now inside the plant, these genes got incorporated, and the plant themselves started producing the Bt toxin, and therefore whenever insect larvae came to reside on that particular plant, they would get killed, because the plant itself started producing Bt toxin. Now it is a permanent solution. So we'll not have to use again and again the dried spores of Bacillus thuringiensis, because the genes would have already been incorporated into that particular plant species. So this is how they went in for a method wherein they started the biocontrol of the insects and pests by using the microbes. One of the best example is the Bacillus thuringiensis, which produced the Bt toxin. So next, talking about the one more plant. So I told you we can incorporate the Bt gene into the plant, and one such plant that was developed wherein they removed. So what they did, they removed, they took Bacillus thuringiensis. They took Bacillus thuringiensis. From this Bacillus thuringiensis, they isolated the gene. So what was there? The gene they isolated was responsible for the production of the Bt toxin. And that gene, they introduced it into a Bt cotton through a vector carrying the plasmid. Vector carrying plasmid. So now this Bt cotton has Bacillus thuringiensis gene in it. That is why it is called as Bt cotton, means Bacillus thuringiensis cotton. Now this particular Bt cotton, it is resistant to the bollworm. So Bt cottons are usually infected by or attacked by the bollworms. So what these bollworms will do is, they will enter into the cotton during the flower bud stage. So they will enter into that and they will lay their eggs there in the flower of the cotton. And what happens when the eggs hatch and the larvae form, these larvae will start to feed on the flower. So when the flower itself is being fed by the larvae, there will not be flower, then from where will the cotton be produced? So that was a big headache to all the farmers because they had tried a lot of insecticidal methods and all that in order to control this particular pest, that is the bollworm. But every time the bollworm used to evolve itself in order to adapt to whatever insecticide or pesticide they were spraying. So that is when the scientists came to the rescue and they used this Bacillus thuringiensis. From that, they isolated the gene that was producing this Bt toxin and they introduced it into the Bt cotton. Now, when the insect came, the Bt cotton itself has the capacity to produce the Bt toxin now. So, when the insect came to lay the eggs or eggs in that particular plant, and once the larvae came out, these Bt toxin would infect the insect and it will result in the death of that particular insect. So that is how they found out a particular solution. Now Bt cotton can be grown without using any insecticides or pesticides in order to control the bollworm that actually prevents the flowering of the Bt cotton. So this is one best example of Bt cotton is one such best example wherein the Bacillus thuringiensis was used in order to make a genetically modified crop, that is Bt cotton. So next, talking about various other microbial biocontrol agents. Lots are there. So far we came to know about Bacillus thuringiensis, right? Apart from that, there are also various other biocontrol agents such as the fungus Trichoderma. So Trichoderma, it is one of the best biological control agents that was developed for the treatment of plant diseases. So what happens here? There are a lot of microbial pathogens, bacterial pathogens, fungal pathogens, which causes a lot of diseases in the crop plants. And these Trichoderma are voracious growers. That is, they are quite fast growers. They grow in such speed that they completely cover the other microbes which are growing in that particular plant. So therefore, when they completely cover them, and they also release certain toxins which will prevent the further growth of the pathogen in that particular plant. This is how it can be controlled. That is by using, the diseases can be controlled by using Trichoderma. Not just that, Trichoderma also tends to elicit or it will increase the amount of defense enzymes produced in a plant. So when Trichoderma is added to the plant, the defense enzyme would have increased. So these defense enzyme will in turn act when a pathogen is trying to come and attack the plant. So that is how that concept is actually being followed when Trichoderma is used. So Trichoderma species, they are usually free living fungi and they are usually found in the root ecosystem, means in the rhizosphere region. They are usually found in the rhizosphere region, that is the soil which actually surrounds the root region, and they are the most effective biocontrol agents of several plant pathogens. So that is the reason they will overgrow on the pathogen. So when they overgrow on the pathogen will have to fight for the food, the space and all that, and the nutrients and all that. So when they are not able to get the enough nutrients, food and all that, because the Trichoderma growth is overpowering the pathogen will eventually die. And not just that, these Trichoderma also helps in proper growth of the plant as well. That is, increase in the fresh weight and the dry weight of the plant as well, resulting in overall plant growth, development of root hair. For all that, Trichoderma will usually help. So Trichoderma are available in the market in different formulations, and not just that, nowadays in the market there are fertilizers which are available, and those fertilizers are incorporated with Trichoderma. So along with those fertilizers, Trichoderma can also be added to the soil to protect the plants from diseases and also for the overall proper growth of the plant. So this is how Trichoderma is one such very important biocontrol agent. And next, one more important biocontrol which can be done by microbe is the Bacculovirus. So Bacculovirus belongs to the genus Nucleopolyhedrovirus. So these are viruses, and viruses can also be used as a biocontrol agent. It's amazing, right? Because so far we just heard everywhere about virus causing a lot of infections, be it for a plant, a human being or an animal. But it's very fascinating to know that viruses can also be used as a biocontrol agent. So the best example that we can take of is the Bacculovirus, which belongs to the genus Nucleopolyhedrovirus. So these are actually pathogens. But in spite of them being pathogens, so what are pathogens? Those viruses that cause harm to the plants are called as the pathogens, or any microorganism causing harm to the plant is called as a pathogen. But here, in spite of these Bacculovirus being a pathogen, they can attack insect and other arthropods. So insects are one of the biggest menace to the farmers, right? Because if a field gets infected by a lot of insects, then it is very difficult to control them. So that is when we can go in for the use of Bacculovirus. So these viruses, they are species specific. They are also called as the narrow spectrum insecticidal application. They are the narrow spectrum insecticides. Narrow spectrum insecticide means, say for example, I told you Bacculovirus is a pathogen. So because it is a pathogen, it has to infect the crop plant also, right? But what happens when we use the term narrow spectrum insecticide means it will target only the insect, but it will not harm that particular crop. So that is when we can use such viruses, that is the Bacculovirus. So these are species specific, means they can be used only against certain insects and they will not affect the other insects. Say for example, that particular field is affected by aphids and it is also affected by other insects. So now in order to control the aphids, we can use this particular ladybug, right, or the ladybird. But when we add the Bacculovirus also as a biocontrol agent, what if it attacks the ladybug and causes harm to it? So in such cases, what happens is these Bacculovirus will not do so. Why? Because they are species specific. They are meant to attack only those insects which they are meant to attack and not the other beneficial organisms which are living in that particular environment. So that is why Bacculovirus is one of the best insecticidal biocontrol agent. And they have shown to have no negative impacts on the plants, be it the mammals, birds, fishes, or even the non-target insects. So they will only target the insect that is causing harm to the plant. Apart from that, they will not cause harm to any other plants or the particular plant on which this Bacculovirus have been sprayed, or they will not cause harm to the mammals, the birds, nor the fishes, nor even to the insects which are non-target, that is non-target insects. I gave you the example of the ladybird. So they will not cause harm to that. And this technique is quite desirable when beneficial insects are also being conserved, because we have a lot of beneficial insects. Dragonflies. So dragonflies, of course, they are beneficial because they actually feed on the mosquitoes. But other than that, dragonflies are considered one of the best pollinators. So you might have seen that is in the paddy field. So in paddy fields, there is a particular season wherein a lot of dragonflies will come, and their main function is to pollinate. So they help in pollination. Bees also, they help in pollination. So such insects are beneficial insects. They have to be preserved. During that time, instead of going for other biocontrol agents, we can use Bacculovirus as a biocontrol agent, because the Bacculovirus only targets the insect that is attacking the plant. It will not target the other beneficial insects. So that is the reason. So therefore, these Bacculovirus can be used in integrated pest management practices. They can also be used when an ecologically sensitive area is being treated. Ecologically sensitive area means, I told you, in one particular season, maybe in that particular area, lot of dragonflies are participating in the pollination process. So at that time, we are not supposed to harm the dragonflies. So that is the time when we can go in for the use of Bacculovirus in such conditions. So this is how Bacculovirus can be used as a biocontrol agent. So this was about how microbes can be specifically used as a biocontrol agent. We studied how these bacteria can be used as a biocontrol agent, wherein we took the example of Bacillus thuringiensis, and we also studied how fungi can be used as a biocontrol agent, wherein we took the example of Trichoderma, and also we came to know how viruses can be used as a biocontrol agent by using the example of Bacculovirus. So I hope you understood this session well. In the coming session, we shall deal with microbes as biofertilizers. How microbes can be used as a biofertilizer, and also how microbes can biologically control pests and diseases. How they control insects we have seen, but other pests and diseases, how microbes can control, we will study in the coming session. So we shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.